Welcome back to the Chasing Happiness podcast, an honest podcast about finding happiness, what it really means, and the process of getting there. My name is Crystal, and today I'm joined by Suzanne, and I cannot wait to talk to Suzanne because when I first met Suzanne online, one of her social media profiles describes her not only as a 4-time best-selling author, but also as a tourism guru, which I think is just absolutely amazing because anybody who listens to this podcast knows how much I love to travel. So we are totally going to talk about all of those things. But Suzanne, before we get into all of it, do you want to introduce yourself to the Chasing Happiness community?
Yes, and thank you so much, Crystal, for having me on your podcast. I am so excited to be here. I just absolutely love traveling, and I call myself a wanderluster. And yes, I also have written books. My writing journey actually it just came on from when I was homebound due to an illness, and I've been writing since I was a little kid, and it really has been my therapy, and it just has opened up my world in absolutely amazing ways. And when we talk about happiness, like happiness to me, it's just digging really, really deep down inside. And I've been doing that. I just turned 50 in June. So I'm at the stage of my life where I am really doing a lot of heavy duty reflection and looking back on the first half of my life and just bringing the biggest and best parts of what I've learned in the last 50 years and incorporating that into where I'm moving forward. But the biggest lesson that I have learned, and just putting it out there for everyone, is you are your own X marks the spot. And that was a lesson that I had to learn for a long time. Like, we always hear about what other people's stories are, but that big story within yourself, that needs to be written. And there's so many nuggets inside of each of us that just are waiting to be discovered and to be shared out in the world. And writing has done that for me. Traveling has done that for me. And I just keep digging for those nuggets. And I'll tell you, it's a journey that I just can't even, like, I mean, I could talk about it for such a long time. And I'm just so grateful that I can share a little bit of it today on here.
Well, and I'm grateful that you agreed to share a bit of it because I, like you, fully believe that everybody has something inside of them that the world can value from in some way, shape, or form. But writing is something a lot of people are not necessarily comfortable with. And I wonder for you, because you said you've been doing it since you were young, is it something that really just came naturally to you and you just kept doing it? Or at some point in your life, was it something that you were just drawn to and you couldn't get away from?
It was something that it did come naturally, I have to say, because when I was younger, I was born with childhood asthma, and it was pretty severe. And I was in the hospital a lot during my childhood. And I was faced with a lot of solitude at that point, because back then, I was in oxygen tents. I was often separated from my family. And then when I came home, I had to stay out of school for a bit. So I really learned to have to adapt in different environments and being okay with being alone. And I had this fascination with paper, notebook paper and pens. And I always loved reading. And I just one day picked up pen and paper and started writing like stories. And I started having these ideas of like me not being sick and things that I would want to do. And I guess like having superpowers. And I would just be like creating these visions and these characters in my mind. And at that time, I mean, I was only around like 8, 9, or 10. And I guess at that point, I was birthing that being an author back then, but I didn't look at it. I just looked at it. This was my safe place. And it just really helped me get through so many difficult times, because I was in the hospital a lot as a kid and having to be home a lot because of the asthma. And not everybody understood it either. I was bullied because I was different. I couldn't participate a lot in physical activities. And unfortunately back then too, when you stand out with something like that, I mean, I became a target. So my writing was really my safe place. It was my therapy. It was where I could go and I could have a world that made sense to me. And it just really helped me. And then as I went further into school and high school, I had teachers that were picking up on my writing. And I had an English teacher that said, my God, like your writing is incredible. You need to do something with this. So I took creative writing and speaking my last year, my senior year, and I started really feeling in love with it and feeling like I could do more with it. And I had started out toward being a teacher, and I did that for a while. And then it was just like this series of circuitous routes, detours, as I like to call them. And they took me in different directions, but the writing was always a central part of it. Somehow or another, I always ended up with the writing. And then around 2016, I was homebound due to another illness. And I was just at this point in my life, like, okay, I can't work right now. I don't know what else to do, and was praying for an answer. And then it was like this light bulb just hit me. It was like, okay, you always wanted to write a book. You want to be an author. Why don't you take the time to do that? And opportunities just opened themselves up, and taking that initial step, that initial leap of faith. I mean, it was scary, but it just opened up my world in ways that I never could have dreamed. I mean, so I guess I always had the ability to it, but I had to keep developing it and believing it that it could go somewhere even further than I ever dreamed.
I love that. I love that because a lot of times I find what happens when I'm working with clients or just, friends and family that I talk to, I hear a lot that, people have this idea, they have this thing. But what happens is we try it and it doesn't go exactly how we had planned. Something goes wrong, something doesn't work out. And people often don't keep trying. They don't keep picking themselves up and going for it because they think that first hiccup, that first failure, whatever they label it as, is something that means they shouldn't keep going. And what you did was just keep refining it, keep trying, keep in some way, shape, or form moving forward with it, even if it looked a little different than you had imagined. So I love that because it's such a great lesson to just keep trying if it's something that you love.
Exactly. And I want to encourage anybody too that has thought about writing. I had somebody say to me when I first came up with writing a book, they said to me, well, you got to realize that the market is saturated. There's millions and millions of writers out there. And I was feeling a little bit discouraged at that. But then I talked about it with someone else. And this person said to me, yeah, but you could say that about any profession. Look at how many teachers there are and how many, nail technicians there are. I mean, there could be, it's like, yes, I mean, any kind of career out there, there are a lot of people, but it's what you put into it. It's your unique message. It's your unique story. And it's funny because, I mean, when I wrote my first solo book, which is a series, this little book, I mean, it's very simplistic. It's fiction, but it's based on a lot of my own personal and professional experience. And I mean, people just kept coming up to me like, oh my God, I can relate to this. I've been through something like that. And I felt like this. So I mean, you just never know. You never know. I mean, when you put out something that's uniquely you, it's going to touch lives, and you don't even know sometimes who you're impacting. I mean, once in a while, I'll have somebody come up to me who's on my Facebook that I never hear from, but yeah, they'll see me in public and they'll be like, oh, I loved your book, or I'm following your journey. So, I mean, we just don't always know who we're impacting. So it's so worth just putting out a gift. And even if it's not writing, it's something else that's a passion. I mean, something that's uniquely yours that only you can put out.
I love this. And I love that you shared that because I think a lot of people do often sort of get stuck in the yes, but there's 900 million other people doing what I want to do. And you're right. The way that we as individuals experience life, we may go through some of similar circumstances, but ultimately our perspectives are different. And that different perspective is going to connect with people who you may not never even imagine. And with billions of people on the planet, it's 100% worth it, even if you only touch one life.
Exactly. Yes.
Oh, I love this so much.
Oh, and I tell people too, like, especially with writing in a book, with our digital age right now. I mean, a book, something that we publish online, an article, blog post, I mean, it has the potential of reaching billions and billions of people. So, I mean, again, like we're blessed to have an age where we can have this ability to be able to reach so many different people. So, and I mean, with what's been happening the last couple of years, like I think more and more people are discovering their own gifts and passions and hobbies that maybe they never thought that they could, make a living and have a wonderful life. Because like I hear when I was teaching, I would have kids talk to me like they wanted to be musicians or artists, and they weren't always being encouraged to do that. They were told to do something, quote, practical. But
Right.
I mean, anything that if you put your passion into it, I mean, I always believe that, I mean, there's more than enough for everyone out there. And I believe that, I mean, there's a place for a gift, a passion, a desire to do something, no matter what it is.
I 100% agree. And I absolutely love this conversation because I think being someone who is not much younger than you, I would say, especially growing up, there was a really, for me in the environment I grew up in, there was a really like you need something that's going to be stable. You need something that's going to provide. You need something that will guarantee you safety for the rest of your life. There was never this focus on follow the thing that sets your soul on fire so that even on the hard days, you still want to go to work. Even on the hard days, you want to put in the effort. Even if you're not making $1 million, you're still happy. And I think there's a shift happening in the world, as you said, especially over the last couple of years, where people are starting to change their perspective. And they're starting to think, if I lose all of these things that I thought were important to me because I no longer have access to them, what does that leave me with? And what does my life look like? And what really ultimately brings me joy and happiness? And what does that mean to me in the end, if this is the life that I have to live versus this other complicated, busy life that we were living? So I think there really is a shift happening in the world. And I think it's really important for people to remember, especially for those listening to this podcast, the last couple of years has been hard for a lot of people. It, however, has had a great bunch of lessons. And the only thing we really can control is what we choose to do with our lives. And if you're not doing something that brings you joy, then at the end of the day, what do you really have? It's this thing that you do, this writing, which totally fascinates me because I have always struggled with words as someone who is dyslexic. So people who can actually sit down and write and do so in such a magical way is just something that I absolutely adore. And so your ability, even through all of the struggles that you went through growing up, and even through, being an adult, which is complicated for most people, you found a way to turn that into the core of your life in some ways. And I think there's magic in that. So I am so grateful for you, not just for sharing that with the world, but you're also helping other people to learn how to write. You're helping your ghost writing. So you're helping other people sort of express themselves. For you, what's the difference between writing something yourself and helping someone else write something?
It's interesting that you asked that because I do editing and proofreading and ghostwriting as part of one of my side gigs. And I mean, obviously, when I'm writing something for myself, I mean, I can be who I really, really want to be. And I can get out things that maybe I wouldn't feel as comfortable saying to someone if I was talking to them in person. But yet, when I'm writing something for myself, when I was writing my first solo book, there were things that came out as I was writing, like, oh, I want this to go out in the world. I just wasn't sure exactly where I could put it in a safe place. And so I was able to get a lot of what I wanted out there for, the world to hear. Now, when I'm editing, I like to use analogies a lot, and I call it that I'm like the editing is like the dressing on the salad. You got all the ingredients, you got the content there, and it just needs to be finessed. And so I call it like the dressing on it, because it just needs that one little extra piece. And but like when I'm editing and working with authors, it's so important to keep their voice, what they want to get out. So that's always a challenge as an editor, to make sure that when I'm giving suggestions and feedback, it's like, okay, I'm not trying to take their voice away, but what more can be known about them? Like, I'll ask some questions like, can we emphasize a little more on this part of your story or this part of your life? So it's really like a huge balance to make sure, like when I'm writing for myself, I can put anything because it's my own voice. But when you're editing and working with authors, you really have to stay within their vision and their voice. And it's been inspiring for me, because I have learned so much from working with so many different authors and seeing what people have gone through to get to where they are. And it's just incredible. Like, I feel it's such a great medium to be able to communicate with people and learn so much more about them. And so it's just a great opportunity to really get to know people on a deeper level.
Oh, I love that. For people who are listening, I think it's really important, because it can be a struggle, especially over the last couple of years, to actually connect with people and get to know people. And what you are basically talking about is sort of a connection in a different way. We've been so focused the last couple of years, especially on this, like the only way to connect with people is on Zoom or whatever, because we haven't had the ability to meet up in person as regularly as we wanted to. But you really can connect through words in a really meaningful way. And I think that's why people are so drawn to memoirs. When people tell their story, it's almost like getting to sit on a sofa with someone and hear about what they've been through in their life. And there's so much magic in those words. So I love that. The way you describe it is fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
For people who might be listening to this and want to work with you in the future, what's the best way for them to find you or get in touch with you?
They can find me. I have a website, and I want to mention a little bit about that. My love of travel, and I had a vision to start a business, an online business, a couple of years ago, to do with helping promote and write content for businesses in the hospitality and travel industry, again, using my writing. And I'm in the middle right now of a rebrand, actually, because so many people right now are looking for guidance, and people have asked me a lot, on my Facebook about how I got through certain things and situations like that. So I'm actually looking to add like maybe more like strategy sessions, some coaching, some travel suggestions, how to budget, and still have fun when you're traveling. So they can find my contact information. It's www.highrisetourism, that's all one word together.com, and my email is in there, which is Suzanne at highrisetourism.com. And then I also have my Facebook business page, which is under Suzanne Voie. That's my maiden and author name, and that's LA capital V as in Victor OIE. And then I have a personal Facebook page as well, and I always welcome direct messages over that, Suzanne Voie Sammon. And I have an Instagram, which is my Instagram handle is Tourism Guru Suzanne Voie. So many different ways to be able to contact me. And I also provide the editing and proofreading and ghostwriting. I work with a wonderful publisher right now. She was actually my publisher for my first solo book. And then I also do it on my own. So lots of great stuff going on.
Perfect. And for everyone listening, I will, of course, put in the show notes all of the links to all of the websites and social media so that you can follow Suzanne and get in touch. But before I let you go, Suzanne, I do want to ask you a few questions because I typically would ask questions at the end of a podcast, but we had talked a little bit before I started recording. I've recently moved across the country, and for a month or so, I got away from asking the questions at the end of the podcast, and the community spoke out and they said, we want the questions back. So I'm bringing back the questions, and you can feel free to answer or not answer. It's just a few questions about life and happiness. Are you game to answer?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Perfect. So the first question is, if you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
If I were to go back in time, I would tell myself to not let what other people around me were saying to really define who I was. And I let that happen a lot to me. I tried to be everything other than really who I was. And if it was adults saying things to me or peers, I did everything I could to try to fit into a mold that really was not me. And it took me years and years and years to finally get to that point where I am me. I have my own wiring. And if I'm trying to cross my wiring with somebody else's, I'm going to short circuit, which is what was happening to me a lot. And so I would go back in time and tell myself that it doesn't matter what this person's saying or that's saying or what their expectations or their demands or dreams are. It's like, I'm staying in my own lane. I can't drive two vehicles at once. I can't dress, myself and somebody at the same time. Like, I have to be me, but it's like always trying to be in that other lane when you have your own lane to be in. So I would definitely encourage, just find that whatever makes you happy, what makes you passionate and wanting, as you said, to get out of bed in the morning and go to work, and even in school, like, find whatever it is that just makes you feel so good that you want to get up and share it with the world.
I love that. I think that's brilliant and I love that you bring up school too, because, being the person that I am, I struggled a lot in school because it was hard to stay focused. I'm dyslexic and I had a very chaotic home life. And so school for me it wasn't something to look forward to. It was always something that felt like a chore because there wasn't something, until I discovered art, there wasn't something that actually gave me an excuse to be excited about it. And so I love that you bring up school, because I think often, especially when we get older and we're looking at, high school and post-secondary school, we often look at it like I have to get through it versus how can this experience bring me joy? What about this is fun, exciting, a reason to keep going forward. So I love that you brought up school. I think that's magical too. The next question is, if you could have lunch with anyone in the world, who would it be and why?
Oh, wow. There's a lot of people, I would say. There's so many different people I could think of, but I think, I would say Oprah Winfrey, because I just absolutely love what she has done with her life. And I have followed her journey for a long time. And she came from a lot of really hard backgrounds. And she just reinvented herself and what she has done to help other people. And to sit down with her and find out, like, what was it that just helped her keep that vision and keep going. And, and again, just all of the wonderful charities that she's done and just all the good. And she just believes so much and, into just spreading love and, that's such a big vision of mine too, is that, I'll be in that space someday where, I could just do even more than what I'm able to do now through my books. Cause I see so many needs out there and I have such a heart for people that just don't believe in themselves enough to be able to get out of that muck and mire and realize that no matter what has happened to us in life, and I've had a lot happen in my life where, I mean, you literally have to just have a vision and believe that an abundant, wonderful life is out there for you and for everyone. And I mean, like I just am inspired by what she did with her life and what she continues to do. And to know more about her journey would just be amazing.
Yes, I 100% agree. She's definitely on my list. And I'm like you, I have a very long list of people I would choose on any given day, but she is definitely on the list for a lot of the same reasons. And I think there is a magic in how she forged forward. And I so desperately want to know more and more about it. She actually, I follow her on social media, and she posted over the holidays. She had some of the girls from her school in Africa over for the holidays after they had quarantined and all of this other stuff. And I just thought, the magic, even though she's not in the spotlight the same way she used to be, the magic that she is still creating by teaching that generation, by creating that school, by helping those young girls, by bringing them here so they can spend time and learn from her. And just, oh, yes, totally obsessed, 100% with you on that one. The last question is, what does happiness mean to you?
Happiness to me means getting up every day and enjoying all those moments in that 24 hours that we're given. I was a person who lived in the future for a long, long time, always planning and always looking at the next thing. And, oh, maybe this will happen and I'll plan for this. And it's fun to have a vision, but it's also like looking at, okay, what's in front of us for this day. And I actually wrote a Facebook post this morning about, like just for today, I am blessed. For today, I am so grateful. For today, I am open to miracles. And for today, I will take care of myself. For today, I can be there for others. And I mean, like that's just the gift of it. Happiness is knowing that in that 24 hours that we're given each day, like it is a gift, and we're a gift, and finding whatever that is inside of us that we can share. Like when I woke up this morning and knew that I had this podcast, like, I mean, I was just so excited that I'm getting these opportunities to share these messages. And I've met amazing people like you. And I mean, just through this group, and it's just like that to me, like this connection of meeting so many people, and just knowing that, my, time is able to help other people and give inspiration, because I wish there was more like this out there when I was going through what I was. And I'm just so grateful that we have all of these opportunities to be able to get messages out there and to help as many people, because I just feel that, your happiness inside is what is meant to be there for someone else to help guide them to discover their own happiness.
Oh, God, that's beautiful. I love that. I, of course, will post in the show notes all of the ways that you can get in touch with Suzanne and all of the things so that you can find it when you're listening to this podcast. They'll be in the show notes for anybody who's looking for them. And of course, Suzanne, I will tag you in all of the social media. And you are an amazing gift. I am so grateful to you for your time today. We're recording this sort of in between Christmas and New Year's, and I know it's a chaotic time for people. So I appreciate you taking the time. And I could probably talk to you all day, because I think your words are just so eloquent. And the way that you describe things, I think people who are listening to this podcast will definitely relate to and be inspired by. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you. I just feel so blessed. I mean, this is the best part of my day. Definitely.
Aww, it's been the best part of my day too. So thank you so much. And thank you all for listening. I appreciate that you guys come back week after week and, 6 years into this podcast, I cannot believe that I'm still doing this and having these amazing conversations and getting to meet amazing people like Suzanne. So it's because you guys keep coming back and you listen and you share the podcast with people you love. So if you've enjoyed today's podcast, certainly follow Suzanne on social media, get in touch with her, but share the podcast with someone who you think might appreciate it as well, so that they can benefit from all of the amazing things that she's had to say. And I appreciate you guys coming back week after week. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a magical week, and we will chat with you next week. Bye for now.